What's going on? Thank you for joining me today. My name is Derek, and this is the Producer's Journal podcast. In this podcast, what I do is tell stories about my experiences throughout my time as a podcast producer and the owner of a podcast production agency called Shelby Rowe Productions. I talk about the past, I talk about the present, and I talk about plans for the future in hopes that you learn through my stories. With that said, I have to apologize on the front end here because I recorded a beautiful episode for you today. Rather, let me correct that, entry. Semantics, but I'm trying to get the titling right. I look at these as entries. And turns out when I listened back to it, I didn't have my microphone selected. It was my cam mic. So it sounds roomy and echoey, and I don't want to redo it because when you tell a story the second time, it's just not the same. So I try to keep this podcast as raw and organic as possible. So what I'm going to do here is kind of just record this monologue here on the front end, let you know why the audio is awful, and apologize ahead of time. But I thought I'd still just throw it out there because I don't want to tell the story again. That's about it. So if you have any interest in reaching out to me, I would love to hear from you. So go to my Instagram page at Shelby Rowe Productions LLC and throw me a direct message, or you can go to shelbyroweproductions.com and email me there. I hope you enjoy the entry. Thank you. In today's entry, I want to talk about something that has been a problem for a while, and it really kind of hit home today. And what it is the combination of ghosting clients and invoicing. Now, when I say ghosting clients, let me rephrase that. I don't mean that I ghost clients. It's when the client ghosts me, and how that affects invoicing, which really comes down to affecting payroll and cash flow. So this is a common thing, and I won't bury you in all the details, but I've over time got better at my invoicing schedule to help balance the income that comes in, because some clients are great, they pay immediately, some take a week or two, 30 days, 45 days. So that can be problematic because I pay my editors bi-weekly. So the money comes out of me to my labor faster than the money comes in. And then the money finally comes in all at once at the end of a month or something, and then it catches up. But I'm constantly having to borrow money from myself, which is money that I put away for taxes. And then I always pay it back when the money comes around. But my cash flow is pretty limited, so I have to be very careful of that. So, but I have options to pull money from a credit line if needed, but that's emergency basis only. So that's been a struggle, and I'm kind of in that mold right now, where I have payroll as I record this on July 6th, 2022. I have payroll on the 15th, and I have a good chunk of money waiting for me, or out there, but this just hasn't come in yet. So it gets nerve-wracking as a small business owner, and really any business field. So with all that said, I'm already in that headspace of dealing with that. Well, then it got even more, tense today, because I have a client that could potentially ghost. I hope this doesn't happen, but let me give you the backstory here. So I met another producer who will remain nameless, because this person may or may not be an issue. But I befriended this other producer because we were both hired for a podcast a while back. And this producer was going to handle marketing and coaching and story branding, where me and my agency were just going to handle all of the editing. Perfect partnership. I'm going to do another entry at some point talking about another partnership I have and how much I love partnerships and how they benefit you. But that's how I met this person. Well, that podcast didn't work out due to unforeseen circumstances. Fast forward a couple months, and this person reaches back out to me. And I'll say she, because I'm tired of saying this person. She wanted to know if I'd partner up with her on a podcast because she just didn't have time for the editing. The reason for that is she's what I call a solo producer or a solopreneur. She does it all. So she's limited on time and how many clients she can take in. And she got this new client that came in that was a heavy-hitting client with a lot of editing. So a high money earner, but she just didn't have the time. And she liked the fact that I had a team behind me. So she thought of me, which I am very grateful for, and she contacted me to see if we could partner up on this, where we would handle the editing. Absolutely. So we started working through all those details, and it's a high labor podcast, pretty extensive video editing, multi-camera, in person, and then multi-hosts on Zoom and Zencaster and all these other platforms. So sometimes it's like 5 talking heads that we need to switch back and forth through, and they don't do any real-time camera work. So it's pretty heavy-duty editing. And we had to also help kind of retool the templates and put together a new template for thumbnails. And it turned into a 15-hour episode. So I'm loving this. My editor's loving this. You know, 'cause good hours for him. And then, of course, I get my profit margin. So it's a ton of hours for me. And I'm not doing anything. So it's the beautiful part of owning an agency like this. So win-win, very excited, to the point where my editor was finally like, okay, cool, I have enough work where I'm at capacity. And then I even then interviewed another editor because I knew then he would be full. So it was a big deal. It was awesome. Now, when I hired the other editor, I just found someone that's willing to start when needed. This person's on the sideline. So, well, then I invoiced on the 1st of the month, on July. Now, this is mistake number 1. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about invoice scheduling. I could have invoiced for this episode back, I would say let's say June 20th even. But at the time, I was only invoicing twice a month, 1st and 15th. And I would cut my client base in half. So client list A invoiced on the 1st, client list B invoiced on the 15th. That was the kind of a way for me to balance income coming in. Something just dropped behind me that scared the crap out of me there. I don't know if you could hear that, but so that was my way to try to balance the income. So when we finished production of this episode, it was, again, let's say it's June 20th, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to invoice that on the 1st. So I'm not doing that anymore. For any kind of one-off type of situation, I'm invoicing as soon as it's done. So that took a lot of time to get to the 1st, right? So you're talking about 2 weeks here, or week and a half before I finally send the invoice. So that took time. Meanwhile, my editor needs to get paid. Well, because the partnership wasn't totally established quite yet with I almost said her name, with this producer, I was supposed to be directly contacted to the actual client, and they were going to pay me directly and then pay her directly for her services. And I was supposed to get a contract and everything. But like an idiot, we went ahead with the production. So fast forward to July 1st, I send the invoice to the producer because I haven't had any connection to the client yet. So I sent it to the producer. And she said, great, I'll look over this and you'll hear back from me. And then I also asked for an update. Well, when will new files be coming in? So she didn't answer that second question. So I'm like, all right. Well, now as I record this, it's July 6th. So it's been almost a week. I'm getting a little antsy already because of my cash flow situation just in general. But I'm also a little concerned and worried about this new situation. So I emailed her again today, and she said the thing that it's just so terrifying to me. Having trouble reaching the client. They're not getting back to me. Awesome. Okay. That's not good. She says they've usually been really good, but I'm going to stay on top of this because they also owe me money. All right. Well, at least I'm not the only one. And then she proceeds to say, and I don't think I'm going to continue with the client because they're just too sporadic, and they are. They're a very interesting bunch of people that were producing this podcast or hosting this podcast. So I'm like, okay, now that's another bummer because that we kind of lose a client now because of that, and my editor was really hoping to get all those hours, and so was I as the business owner. But it is what it is. What really concerns me is getting paid. It's about $1,000 that is owed to me. So I ask her, well, what's your plan if they ghost you? And she said, well, I'll make sure you get paid, but stay positive. Thanks. Staying positive is a good idea. I agree, but it also doesn't pay my labor. So, and I just left it at that. And I didn't say that to her, but so this is a lesson learned and a new experience for me as far as partnering up with someone that is a solo producer. My other partnership is with another agency, another actual company, and we're on the up and up and everything is good. This situation was a little different. So moving ahead, if I'm ever in this position again, there will be an absolute stipulation in there where I will get paid from the partner. That's where the money's coming from. So if the client ghosts the partner or underpays the partner, or if there's an issue between the client and partner, that doesn't pertain to me. I was hired by the partner to edit for that person, so I need to get paid from that person. So this lady should be responsible to pay me regardless of what happens with the client, because it was her client to begin with. And I would like to think I would do the same. If I hired her as a partner to help me with marketing for a client that I own, that I'm editing for, I would want to make sure that I'm set up where I can still compensate her for what she does regardless of what the client does to me. That's kind of how I see it. I'm not ready to explode yet. This lady I'm talking about is really nice, and I'm not trying to put this on her. She's awesome, and I think this is all going to work out. I think we're going to be good, but part of this podcast is to come on here in real time and talk about these things, because this is what I would write in a journal, but instead I'm throwing it in audio format. And hopefully as you listened to this story, you learned something. I hope. I would love to hear your thoughts too. So please engage with me. Go to Instagram at Shelby Rowe Productions LLC and leave me a direct message.